Hello and welcome to my channel. I am the Mad Computer Scientist. Here we take a look at computer science and math topics that are interesting to me. If that interests you, please take a minute to hit the like button and be sure to subscribe and ring that notification bell. Now that we've done all the stuff YouTube likes and have gotten that out of the way, let us return to what this video is going to be about. Now, someone left an interesting topic on my Redeemed Zoomer video. Now, I was a little hesitant about doing this because this channel really isn't about religion. However, I did think it would be fun to take a look at some bad math in the Bible, and much to my surprise, there's even a bit of bad math in the Quran. If you're wondering why I was surprised about that one, it's not because I'm Muslim, it's because that about the time the Quran was written, there were a lot of math nerds around the Islamic world. And I would think that since it was still being edited at the height of the Islamic world, that the math nerds would have filtered a lot of that out. However, one still made it in. Now, are the math errors I'm going to cover particularly egregious? I'll leave that up for the viewer to decide. Personally, I don't think they are, and this should not be taken as an attack on Christianity or Islam. It's just a case where some scribe made an error copying the text, most likely, or perhaps someone misunderstood what was being said, or someone just didn't catch that a mistake was made. We all make math mistakes. The people who wrote these texts down weren't perfect, even if the person who inspired them was. Before we begin, after the Redeemed Zoomer video got a lot of people making assumptions about me that weren't necessarily true, I'm going to make some of the same disclaimers here. I am saying nothing about the truth value of these holy texts. That is outside of the realm of this channel, and that's up for the individual to decide on their own. I am also not saying anything about religion. These are just errors that were made. So please, before going down to the comment sections, keep that in mind. I know I'm repeating myself here, but people paid no attention to the disclaimers last time. So what is the first error I'm going to mention? Well, let's turn to the pages of the Bible. And please, no comments about the Bible version I'm using. I'm using the King James Version because I prefer its flowery language. And that's it. Let's turn to 1 Kings 7:23, where we read, "And he made a molten sea, 10 cubits from one brim to the other. It was round all about, and his height was 5 cubits. And a line of 30 cubits did it compass it round about." Now let's do the math here, and you can pull out your calculator, pull up your calculator program, or pull out your cell phone to follow along. So we know it has a diameter of 30 and a circumference of 10. Now if we divide 30 by 10, we simply get 3. Does this mean that the Bible is saying that pi is equal to 3? Well, it does imply that, but there are a couple things you need to keep in mind here. The first was that measurements were not that precise, and secondly, this could have just easily have been rounding. If you want more in-depth apologetics into why the Bible might have gotten this one right, I'd recommend going to any number of sites that explain it. I personally think that this is not a smoking gun that is going to prove or disprove the truth of Christianity. It's just simply something that the Bible might have gotten wrong. There are many other math errors in the Bible, but most of them can be attributed to copyist errors that have been made over the centuries. Now that we have covered what most people consider to be the most serious math error in the Bible, let us turn our attention to the Quran. Now the Quran, as far as I know, really only does contain one math error, and it's just an error adding fractions. If we add the fractions together, I'm about to go through here, you'll find up the third one doesn't actually add up to 1 like it should if we're dividing shares up. I am not an expert on Islamic law, nor do I claim to be, nor do I think that this particular error, if it is an error, detracts from the rest of the text and its meaning to people who find the text to be meaningful to their lives. After all, it's just discussing how to divide up inheritances after a husband dies, if I'm understanding the verse correctly, and I'm open to the idea that I might not be. Please keep in mind that as someone who has never studied Arabic, I am forced to use an English translation. You may want to pull out a piece of paper and follow along on this one, because it's a bit hard to follow. The wording is, at least in the English translation, Allah directs you as regards to your children's inheritance. To the male, a portion equal to that of 2 females. If only daughters 2 or more, their share is 2/3 of the inheritance. If only one, her share is a half. For parents, a 6th share of the inheritance to each, if the deceased left children. If no children, and the parents are the only heirs, the mother has a 1/3. If the deceased left brothers or sisters, the mother has a 1/6. It goes on to say that this distribution can only be made after all debts are paid off, if I'm reading this correctly. Now, I understand some of you are probably groaning when you realized this is going to require to use fractions, but it's not really that bad. I'm going to help you out a little bit if you want to follow along, because the least common denominator is 24. This is also specific scenarios where certain people are left alive after the father passes. Now, the first issue here is if a man only has 1 daughter, she gets half the share. But if the man has a son, his share is double hers. You may be doing the math quickly here and realize this comes to 3 halves. However, the problem gets actually slightly better when we include more heirs. So, if the deceased leaves behind a wife, 3 daughters, and 2 parents, his wife's share of the inheritance is 1/8, his daughters will receive 2/3, and his parents get 1/6 of his inheritance each. So, let me do some quick math here and see what that comes out to. His wife and his children will each get 1/8 of his share, making 3/24, their total share. His daughters will get 16/24 of his share. His father will get 1/6 of his share, which is 4/24 of his share, as will his mother. Now let us add up all those fractions together. 3/24 plus 16/24 plus 4/24 plus 4/24 equals 27/24. Now, if you remember how to divide up shares, you may notice a problem here that 27/24 is greater than 1. And unless there has been money injected into the inheritance, this is not a split that is possible. Even if we were to reduce the improper fraction to 9/8 or express it properly as a mixed fraction at 1 1/8 or 1.125, we still have an issue that there should only be 100% of an inheritance to share in this case. Is it possible that this is a translation error in the source I'm using? Yes, it's possible. Finally, I was going to turn my attention to the Book of Mormon, but a lot of the math errors in the Book of Mormon are simply indications that Joseph Smith was an uneducated farmer who might have forgotten when certain things were supposed to occur when he was writing down or translating the text. If I wanted to debunk the Book of Mormon, I certainly wouldn't start with the math first, because much of what the Book of Mormon says contradicts known history, and certain things described in the Book of Mormon are literally impossible. But both of the math errors, if they are math errors that are presented here, are really not that interesting. There are easy explanations for why this might have occurred, and in no way do these math errors say anything about whether or not the faith claims of the religion are true. They're simply errors that got made when someone was copying the text down, most likely.